Before most of Chicago had stirred from sleep, the neighborhood dairy was already alive with quiet routine. Fresh milk, bottled only hours earlier, was loaded by hand into sturdy wooden crates that would soon appear on porches across the city. Every bottle represented a promise of freshness, and every route depended on careful preparation before daylight. Once the cargo was secured, the Divco Milk Truck eased through the silent streets, passing warehouses, railroad crossings, and rows of brick homes waiting for another ordinary morning. There was little fanfare in this work, only consistency, patience, and the trust built between a driver and the families who counted on him. As the first rays of sunlight reached the neighborhood, the day's first delivery quietly marked the beginning of another long route through the city. As daylight spread across Chicago's neighborhoods, the milk route settled into its familiar rhythm. Each stop followed a routine refined through years of quiet service. Fresh bottles left behind, empty ones carefully gathered for cleaning and reuse. Brief greetings at the doorstep reflected a relationship built on trust rather than convenience, where the driver was a familiar face known to nearly every family along the route. The Divco moved patiently from block to block, its cargo growing lighter with every delivery, while stacks of empty bottles slowly filled the truck in return. Long before supermarkets became the center of daily shopping, this simple exchange helped begin the morning in countless American homes, one doorstep at a time. By mid-morning, the route extended beyond quiet residential blocks into apartment buildings, neighborhood cafes, and small businesses that depended on fresh dairy deliveries before opening their doors. Every stop followed a familiar pattern shaped by reliability rather than speed. Empty bottles returned to the truck, fresh milk found its place on porches, in metal milk boxes, and behind cafe kitchens preparing for the breakfast rush. As the city became busier, the Divco remained part of the ordinary rhythm of Chicago, moving patiently through streets where its arrival was expected rather than noticed. It was dependable work that quietly connected dairies, neighborhoods, and local businesses every single morning. As the morning deliveries drew to a close, the weight inside the truck had quietly shifted. The fresh milk that began the day in neatly stacked wooden crates had found its way to homes, cafes, and neighborhood stores. In its place were rows of empty glass bottles, each one destined to be cleaned, sterilized, refilled, and returned to the same route in the days ahead. Every exchange reflected a practical system built on reuse, routine, and trust. With the final invoices completed and the last neighborhood stops behind him, the Divco turned back toward the dairy, carrying not just empty bottles, but the evidence of another morning's work that helped keep Chicago supplied before most of the city had even finished breakfast. By late morning, the route had come full circle. The fresh milk that left the dairy before dawn had reached homes, cafes, and neighborhood stores throughout Chicago. In return, thousands of empty glass bottles came back to begin the cycle again. At the dairy, every bottle would be inspected, washed, sterilized, and refilled, while the truck itself was cleaned, checked, and made ready for another early departure. It was a routine repeated 6 days a week with little recognition, yet it quietly connected farms, dairies, drivers, and families across the city. For the Divco Milk Truck and the people who depended on it, another ordinary working day had come to an end, ready to begin again before sunrise tomorrow. For the customers, the day's deliveries had already ended. Inside the dairy, however, another cycle was only beginning. Every returned bottle was washed, inspected, and prepared to carry fresh milk once again. Workers moved with quiet efficiency, filling, sealing, and packing each bottle into wooden crates that would soon return to Chicago's neighborhoods before dawn. By the close of the afternoon, the Divco rested in the garage while tomorrow's route was already taking shape beside it. The truck's work lasted only a few morning hours, but behind every delivery stood an entire team whose careful routines kept the cycle moving day after day, year after year. By afternoon, the pace inside the dairy had slowed, but the work had not truly ended. Wooden crates were repaired, records were updated, equipment was cleaned, and the truck received the quiet attention that kept it dependable through countless mornings. Much of this labor was never seen by the families waiting on their front porches, yet it was every bit as essential as the deliveries themselves. In these ordinary tasks, the dairy prepared not only for tomorrow's route, but for another day in a tradition that quietly served Chicago for generations. The Divco rested only briefly, knowing that long before the city awoke again, another working day would begin. As evening settled over the neighborhood dairy, the day's work quietly gave way to tomorrow's preparations. Fresh bottles stood chilled inside wooden crates, route sheets were already waiting, and the Divco rested in the garage after another dependable morning on Chicago streets. For the families who would wake to fresh milk on their porches, these final hours remained unseen. Yet it was here, in the calm routine after the deliveries were finished, that another working day truly began. Before the city stirred again, the truck would leave this same loading dock, following familiar streets in a tradition repeated thousands of times, ordinary, dependable, and quietly woven into everyday American life. Morning always came early at the neighborhood dairy. Before most of Chicago opened its eyes, workers had already returned to the loading dock, preparing another day's deliveries with the same care as the day before. The truck was loaded, the route reviewed, and the familiar engine came to life in the darkness. Nothing about the routine sought attention. Its value was found in its consistency. For years, trucks like the Divco quietly connected local dairies with the homes and businesses they served, becoming a dependable part of everyday life without ever asking to be remembered. As the truck disappeared once more into the awakening city, the cycle began again. Another ordinary morning, another route, and another forgotten chapter in the history of American work. History often remembers the extraordinary, yet everyday life was sustained by ordinary machines and ordinary people. The Divco Milk Truck was never built for attention. It was built to arrive before dawn, to carry fresh milk through quiet neighborhoods, and to return home before most of the city had finished breakfast. For decades, its steady routine became part of the landscape of American life, trusted by families who rarely stopped to consider the work behind each delivery. Today, those familiar sounds have largely disappeared, replaced by different ways of moving goods through modern cities. Yet the legacy remains, not only in the surviving trucks preserved by collectors, but in the memory of a time when service, reliability, and quiet dedication traveled one neighborhood at a time. As the Divco disappears once more into the morning light, it leaves behind a simple reminder that history is often carried forward by the vehicles no one thought to remember.
Route 6 is complete. 144 bottles. Confirmed. Next pallet. Morning, fellas. Morning, Bill. Ready for the route? Did you finish the homework?
Barely. I stayed up late reading.
Me too. I hope we don't have a pop quiz.